Let's start with going through the local dailies, and Waheshimiwa will be helping me to make sense of what is on the papers. And we start with the number one paper in the country, that is the Daily Nation. And today, two papers, the Daily Nation and the Standard, are carrying the same headline. And this is a mystery behind Njeri Njoroge, a lady, the businesswoman, who is involved in the 17 billion fuel mystery, I should say, at the ports. And the Daily Nation says, face behind 17 billion shillings fuel saga, and import and export enterprises also deals in curios and handicrafts. Just to give you the kicker on the story, Njeri Njoroge, the businesswoman at the center of the ownership row of the 17 billion consignment of diesel, resurfaced yesterday, claiming a 4-day kidnap ordeal and torture, even as fresh details emerged on her businesses and dealings in Kenya, Uganda, Dubai, Russia, and Israel. But the paper trail raises more questions than answers. That story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. You want to get more about Njeri Njoroge, be sure to grab the paper. Just to quote Njeri on what she said, they said, "I would never see my children again if I dared to provide false information. I assured them that my statement at the DCI was truthful. The consignment is mine. I imported it from Europe." The tonnage of the consignment is 93,460 metric tons of fuel that was at the ports. So perhaps even before we get to the other stories, because the same story is also on the front page of the Standard, my 120-hour ordeal with kidnappers. Who is fooling who? The Standard asks. Njeri, the woman at the center of 17 billion oil import dispute, says she was held captive in a windowless house for 120 hours and given the option to either surrendering the diesel or facing death, even as other documents emerged, casting more doubts on real ownership of the fuel import. The worth of that particular fuel is 17 billion shillings, so cost of fuel that Njeri claims to have imported and which is now subject of a raging dispute. Before I get the comments of my guests, I'll quickly perhaps go back to the Daily Nation again to see which other stories are on the front page. There is PAF on the Daily Nation. Kindiki now revises fees for IDs and passports. Remember that concern when new charges were gazetted by the Ministry of Interior, and now the CS has revised some of the fees and said until public participation is done, so that these new charges will be taking place. But let me come to you, Senator Wamatinga. You're the chairperson, Energy Committee. This is a scandal that really touches on you, I should say. Perhaps you may start by telling us your quick thoughts on what is happening at the ports and this 17 billion fuels mystery. Let
me start by saying that fuel importation is one of the highly regulated sectors in the economy. The reason being that the country has to make long-term plans, and these long-term plans means that several months before even the oil is imported into the country, it is known which ship will dock at what time, what quantity will be on board, who are the importers, where is the source, and most importantly, we know that the ships do not get paid for the fuel like the way you would pay for tomatoes. You have to make extensive arrangements with the banks, including the letters, the LCs, which must be confirmed by international banks. Therefore, without that, the risk of being a sub judice, I find it quite interesting that someone would wake up and say, this is my cargo. It doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. You have to be licensed as an oil importer. We know just the other day that the government entered into a G2G kind of an arrangement where we are sourcing our oil from three known sources, that is a kind of a government-to-government arrangement, and they've gone ahead. They're the counterparts in Saudi, in Dubai, and made arrangements with 3 local companies, marketers, who have been mandated and licensed to deal on their behalf. These are the Garana, the Gulf, and Olex. Mm-hmm. I do not understand why someone would walk into a shipping yard and buy a 17 billion vessel of oil, import it to a country where you do not hold a license. I mean, it doesn't work like that. Senator, I'm actually quite perturbed because the system in itself, the documentation, alone to get the letter, the credit, the LC, letter of credit from the bank, it is quite a lengthy process. And I don't see which bank will give you an LC if you don't hold a license to import the oil. Therefore, it is quite an interesting thing, and I hope this is not another kavura. This country has quite an interesting way of getting people come up and talk about quite huge sums of money that you cannot relate to. But it will be quite interesting to see the end result of this and what kind of an end game this would be.
With the benefit of being the chair energy,
yes,
kindly break it down for our viewer that this is what you need before you can import such a consignment of fuel.
As said,
what exactly is needed? Before
you even become an importer, you need a license from EPLA. That's the regulator. Having gotten the license from EPLA, currently, as the situation Kenya, the country is in, there are only 3 companies, international companies, that Aramco of Saudi Arabia and 2 other companies, one from Dubai and the other one from Abu Dhabi, which have entered into a kind of an arrangement with the government so that they can be selling us fuel, which we are paying 6 months later, 180 days later. Therefore, all the oil that's coming into the country, and actually to our neighboring countries, we consume, of the 100% consignment, we consume 60%, 40% goes to the neighboring countries. You must be licensed. And then we have, like now, we know which ships will be docking at what date until June. And these are documented because you have to regulate the supply to ensure that the country remains wet. You have to know in the next 6 months which ships will be docking, where their consignments will be coming from, the origin, and most importantly, for you to be able to secure the cargo, the consignment, you must have an LC from a bank which you exchange with the bill of landing. The question would be, I do not know, but where did this lady get the LC from? Where did she get the license from that she's not known to hold? They are known oil marketers. And we checked the list of EPLA, who they've licensed the last couple of months, and this name does not appear anywhere.
And that is subject to a litigation in court, because the matter is in court,
yes,
on whether she is able to prove whether the fuel is indeed hers or not. But it's interesting that you're giving us the breakdown. Mheshimiwa Kitani, when you get to hear such mysteries happen, that all of a sudden we could have a consignment of fuel dock at the airport, and it's, in fact, right now, even the allegations are that the Njeri's lawyers are saying that the actual, or some part of the fuel has been released by government despite having a court order against it. What is your quick thought about this particular mystery?
Interesting enough. One is she suddenly appears with 17 billion. You know, money is not dug and you get. It grows. And when people do business, with time you get to know them. This is the business I do. But all of a sudden, a lady has come up and she claims to have 17 billion worth of fuel. And even just as the nation has captured, the offices she claims to have in Karen do not exist. This is research done by yourselves, the nation. Sure. Those offices do not exist. So a 17 billion worth company cannot even have an office? That leaves more questions than answers. But more importantly is that, just as Senator Matinga said, fuel is a regulated industry. It's very regulated, and the whole world over. And there are certain countries that cannot export, or we cannot import fuel from because of the restrictions that have been put internationally. So the country would always want to know, where is the source of your fuel? Because if the source of your fuel is from those countries that have been given embargo, then for us as a country, we'll be breaking the treaties that we have signed. So it is very important, and therefore, when a ship docks carrying fuel that you do not know the source, where it came from, it becomes a concern for the country. And then it is docking with a name of somebody, or someone appears who has never dealt in the oil sector, never dealt in this business, never done any other business for that matter to know this is your source of money. Again, we have also signed treaties with regard to money laundering. So the first questions the government would ask is, could this be money laundering? Second is, where is this oil coming from? And all those kind of questions. Because at the end of the day, much as we may want to say we want to give people free hand in doing business, the business has to also be genuine. And we have to protect the Kenyan consumer, we have to protect also our own international treaties that we have signed. Because if you don't do both, then as a country, then we will be leading ourselves into lawlessness. Anybody would come in here and claim to have anything. So really, I think what the government is doing is the right thing. And you've said that there were court orders that stopped the ship from offloading or from docking. The owners of the ships are businessmen. And they know that when this oil was not properly, the documentations were not properly done, they would want to go away, because otherwise they would go at a loss. Because you see, the ship owner has business to do. It is the ship is not the ship does not belong to Njeri, it belongs to other people. So this ship has other businesses to do. Maybe this oil was destined to other countries, and then they tried coming into this country, and because they realized that perhaps this lady or whoever it is that was importing the oil did not have the proper documentations, they had to get away. So by the time the court orders were coming out, the ship was already gone. Whom are you serving?
Well, Mheshimiwa Kitani, I have an issue with that particular claim, because if the ship has docked in the country, there is a court order. It is within the jurisdiction of Kenya, and it finds itself as a vessel of interest. I do not believe then it would hold water to say that they have other businesses and they would say leave and go attend to other businesses. That would be actually contempt of court. It was within Kenya's territory.
What we need to understand is that the ship really docked, because even within KPA, which are the people, those are people mandated to dock ships, there is what you call manifest. There are ships coming, like a plane. You don't just land a plane in a country. There is a procedure. You have to have been cleared. So that question should be asked on KPA. Had they cleared this ship to dock? Because if it had not been cleared, then what was it doing in our seas? In fact, those are the questions we need to ask. Yes. Those
are the questions we need to ask. Mheshimiwa Orero, it will be interesting to know your concern or your take, especially about this. So far, it is 2 against 1. So tell me, when you hear of all this mystery, fuel gets to the country, a businesswoman appears and says, look, it's my fuel. Government says it's not, and now it's a matter in court, and it appears, the Kenya Ports Authority, the chair, Benjamin Tayari, the CEO, William Ruto, all said it doesn't belong to this particular individual, Njeri. What do you make out of all this push and pull?
It is very, very disturbing that we have senators within the government. And who is in charge of energy? Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA. They know, they are aware, they have all the mandate and the necessary tools within the government. We have the DCI, we have the NIS, we have the Interpol, we have the CIA. When the king came here, he went to maritime because the forces of UK are there. There is no ship which can dock in this country without the prior knowledge of the government. Nowhere in this country. One time when I listened to Bwana William Ruto, he said, I'm not going to use my hands. They say now it is prohibited, that mambo ni matatu. This is a mind-boggling amounts and colossal sums of money. You cannot talk about 17 billion in this country without the knowledge of the rulers of the country, without the knowledge of those who are in charge of oil. And this is the time when Kenya alone is experiencing serious lack of fuel, serious high prices of fuel. Yet for 1 month, fuel worth 17 billion is still pending. It has not docked at KPA. When I was young, I used to hear of merry-go-round. These are the merry-go-rounds. These are the theatrics that are being put in the eyes of the Kenyans. And the owners of this should be known. I don't think, from where I sit and from my political standpoint, I don't think that the government does not know the owner of this. And if it was not Anne's, she would not reappear after she was taken. We know how our system operates. We know that there must be people behind this. And already we have a G2G agreements. And this is an individual. When is this affected if already we have a G2G agreement? We still have individuals. What are these policies that the government put in place now that individuals should not be bringing in the fuel? if we already have G2G, what is the effect of this? So we must, in our mind, and we must search our serious intellects and say that really, who is behind this if it is not the government?
But Mheshimiwa, you cannot ignore the fact that a research by Nation has indeed shown that the addresses that Anne gave as her business premise or business addresses do not exist. So that perhaps raises questions. And again, at the risk of sub judice, not to get into what is in court, this is an investigation by Nation. By us, we can stand by it. Her addresses do not exist. Yet, she is a businesswoman owning 17 billion of worth of fuel that is at the port. Doesn't that raise eyebrows?
That is what I'm saying. It raises more questions than answers. For you to operate such colossals of money within our system and within the government, and you even don't have an address, who is protecting you? How do you do that? So that is why we are saying there must be some people behind this that we do not know, and who have agreed that somebody can operate such a colossal sums of money, get scot-free, and walks free, yet the government is not acting. So that is why we are saying that there must be, people must know. I am in education committee. If you were to ask me what is happening in education, I would definitely come and tell you this is what is happening. We have a Senate here, chair, and he's not telling us really with specific answers what is happening. He is hiding from Kenyans, really. Kenyans should look at him in the eyes and see really whether he is telling them the truth. He's the chairman, he's with us here. He needs to tell the Kenyans the truth.
That is a direct shot fired.
Yesterday, as I was driving home, I came across a madman, and he stood there and claimed that one of the cars parked by the roadside was his. You could see the car, an expensive Range Rover. You could see the madman there and claiming that is his car. I do not know what Mheshimiwa would expect me to tell the nation in such a kind of a situation. I mean, people can claim anything, and every Kenyan is within the light. And in every market you have, there is always a madman. And I'm not trying to say that I should not tell Kenyans. What I've done is I've given a breakdown, the process of importation of oil and how it is regulated. And I'm happy he says that EPLA is the sole body that's mandated to license oil importation. Before you even get there, the kind of background check, financial credibility, financial standing, the financial muscle that you must have. We are talking about 17 billion that you must back up with a letter of credit from a credible bank that must be confirmed by an international bank. To get there alone, you need to have a big name. And that is why you saw when the government went G2G, the three companies, the three international companies nominated three companies that had a very, very strong financial holding in the country. That is the Garana, that's the GAF, and Olex. Why they did that is because for every consignment that is put on the ship and sails to Kenya, before it leaves the port of discharge, you must have a confirmed LC. Before you get the bill of landing from the captain, you must have handed over the LC, and it must be confirmed by an international bank. And that's why you see sometimes you get ships coming into the country, and before they can discharge, they have to wait a couple of days because and that accrues a lot of demurrage. Why this happens is because this transaction, it is not only high risk, but it is, we're talking about 17 billion, one single consignment. I'm not saying that this is the person I met along the road, but Mheshimiwa, this is the same case, like where you meet somebody who says, this is my Range Rover, but you look at that person, you know, hello, this cannot even be.
All right, because we are reacting to the headlines, and Mheshimiwa Robert Basil has joined us. Mheshimiwa, thank you very much for joining us on NTV, AM Live, Karibu Sana Nation Center.
Thank you, and sorry for coming a little bit late. I was not very late, I was just on time.
You made Mheshimiwa Orero feel handicapped for a moment.
I'm here to give him the support he deserves.
Now, you found your co-panelists reacting to the story on the front page of the Daily Nation as well as the story on the front page of the Standard. And this is in regards to the 17 billion fuel mystery that is at the ports of Mombasa right now. And Njeri Njoroge resurfaced yesterday, says it is still her fuel. Government says no, it's not her fuel. The matter is in court. But the fact that such a consignment would come to the country to attract to be such a mystery? What does it speak of our, our position as a country? I mean, look at the fuel prices as is, but we're having a consignment worth 17 billion held at the ports. What does that speak of where we are as a country?
First, I don't understand why you say someone will go missing in Nairobi, I mean in Kenya particularly, because we have security apparatus. So how do you how do you disappear or get missing? So there is so much that Kenyans need to know. And I think there's someone who is hiding information from Kenyans. So as my brother stated very clearly, it's a shame to have someone, for example, to have what we are hearing, where someone brings a consignment in Mombasa, then apparently she goes missing. Number two, if you talk of the consignment, the magnitude of money involved, 17 billion, is not a pocket change. These are a lot of money. So it means someone powerful is behind this importation. Number three, I hear a lot of stories about G2G. First, there's nothing like government-to-government negotiation. What we have is an oligopoly system where three companies are importing fuel on behalf of the country. And these companies, if you besiege beyond what we see on the service, these are companies or powerful persons or personalities in this particular country who are importing fuel, eliminating other stakeholders in the market. So let's be honest to ourselves, because if you talk of G2G, basically it's a negotiation between a government or government. There is no single agreement that has ever been published between.
So is it your take that then what is happening at the ports could be as a result of G2G trying to eliminate other people?
This is a third party, I mean a fourth party involved in the equation. As I've indicated, there are only three companies importing fuel on behalf of the country. And these are only oligopoly for those who know the market systems. So having this particular lady importing fuel is ideally trying to enter into the market, and because the current arrangement is three companies eliminating others. And that's exactly what has happened here, where the consignment comes in but is not cleared because of interest or particular or specific interest behind powerful persons who want to say no one else is allowed to import fuel, or these particular companies are the one permitted to bring fuel in the country. And that is why you heard the story that the lady went missing. No one is coming out to explain what happened after she brought the consignment, where she was. There is so much information that is needed. Kenyans deserve to get answers on what exactly happened.
And we need not to lose the direction of this conversation, because so far we're looking at the headlines. It was not our main conversation for the day.
Yes.
But since some serious allegations are coming out, Mheshimiwa Marian, what is your understanding of this entire, because the direction is taking that G2G could be behind all this, that we are trying to lock out some business people. I know we have Wamatinga, who's the chair, but you are in Kenya Kwanza.
Yes.
You must be having an understanding of what exactly this deal is about,
yes,
even before we now look at the other stories and delve into our topic of the day.
I think let me start from where he's left, where he's talked about someone disappearing, government knows. I think we remember when this Mambo ni Matatu phrase came about.
During the sugar.
It was because of this sugar and the Rai guy. All of a sudden he says it's claimed that he has disappeared. And then he finally reappears. So, there are times when people decide to make a circus about a situation and they make themselves disappear and then reappear later because they want to make...
say they make themselves disappear.
That happens.
But we can't say with certainty.
No. So, in this particular instance, this lady has suddenly appeared and she's the one claiming she was abducted. No government entity has come out to say, yes, the lady has disappeared, we are investigating, we are looking for where she is. She's the one who has made the allegations. So you make the allegations.
Miriam, that should be a concern, that no government agency has come out to say we are investigating, should actually be a concern.
No, because if you make yourself disappear, if you make yourself disappear so that you make a story about
then a government agency ought to investigate you, and
which
they
is why
ought to
now
tell us we're investigating this lady for...
I think next time we come here, let's have answered that when she talks like that, it can go into answer. so that she can be made to explain that somebody can plan for disappearance. When Rai disappeared, we had captures, we had captions along Lenana Road.
But
Captions over vehicle.
Over vehicle and people.
But he
And these
suddenly-
people can be
He
traced.
suddenly reappeared by himself. But anyway, I was actually headed to the G2G arrangement and what he says about some mix. Now, we understand that fuel is a product we import. And all along, and even up to today, that product is bought using a currency that is not our currency, that's the US dollar. And knowing that we have become net importers as opposed to even exporters, so that we have our own reserves of currency, the government came in to realize that, for one, this oil used to be subsidized. So if we remove the subsidy, what then happens to the fuel and the fuel prices and the dollars? Because we are also running short of dollars. So government went to negotiate and say, can we now buy fuel from this country, this country, this country at a certain price and fix that price for a month or for the period that they are fixing it, so that when there are hikes in terms of the dollar hikes up and down, the price is already regulated at a certain rate, and therefore we can now convert that to Kenya shillings. The oil marketers today are buying that fuel in Kenya shillings. They're not buying it in dollars. So the dollar that has the dollar rates that were there has already been cushioned by government through this negotiation, and that is what maybe he's referring to the G2G negotiation, but that is what it is. It is actually cushioning the country in terms of exchange rate gains and losses. And if we had not done that, today we'd be talking about a dollar rate that is even beyond 200 shillings.
My director, Mike, tells me we have to take a break. And it's already getting... Mike, perhaps we need some AC here because of the conversation. But ladies, gentlemen, allow us to take this break. When we come back, we briefly look at the remaining stories, very briefly, perhaps with a 10-second comment, then get into a topic, if that's okay with you.
But before we take a break, you know, he complained that he was the only person. I should have complained, I'm the only lady.
Perhaps should as well indicate that you're an iron lady.
These are political now parties. Is it about gender issues?
Well, we take that break here on AM Live. When we come back, we look at the remaining stories very briefly, then delve into our topic. Don't go too far. Well, welcome back. You're watching AM Live NTV, and we want to take at most 3 minutes to quickly go through the other stories that are on the front pages of our local dailies. And there's that story from the Ministry of Interior. Kindiki revises fees for IDs and passports. Interior CS Kithure Kindiki has revoked a Gazette notice. This story here, it's on a puff on the Daily Nation, that Gazette notice that increased fees for key documents such as identity cards, passports, birth certificates, and government staff badges. Some by as much as 20 times to allow for public participation following a national uproar. In a new notice, Professor Kindiki announced revised charges, allowing Kenyans until December 10th to submit their views. That story on the front page of the Daily Nation. The details are on page 6 of the Daily Nation. There is also a regional power play ahead of UDA polls, part of what we shall be discussing, and having UDA insiders as well as people who are having a view of what is happening in Kenya Kwanza from outside. And a twin plot by Mount Kenya region to have a single deputy party leader. One person is here who was having this conversation. And the Secretary General's position in the United Democratic Alliance Party has kicked up a storm. Politicians from the region have opposed a proposal to have 2 deputy party leaders, insisting on reserving the position for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. As that was happening, some politicians from Western Kenya were throwing salvos at the Deputy President. So that we shall be discussing. It wasn't me. Yes, it wasn't me. CS Murkomen blames Jubilee for leaking roofs at JKIA. We read that story earlier. There is also another powerful scandal. Kenya paid 2 billion shillings for loans it did not get, says Controller of Budgets Margaret Nyakango. Nyakango continues to blow the whistle on what is happening in the country. Taxpayers paid 1.89 billion as a commitment fee between July 2022 and September 2023. Actually, this is under this administration. 2023 for loans that have never been disbursed to the country. Controller of Budget Margaret Nyakango has revealed. Page 10. Mheshimiwa Oraro, you want to comment on this story? We have 3 minutes to get to our topic, but the continued...
Before we got into our topic, you know, sometimes politicians like rumors. And now that we have the chairman here, Energy, I would just wish to ask, last weekend, I saw my party leader say that he's going to give a bombshell, that this energy...
On G2G.
On G2G, that the real price of oil should be 187 and not 217. Can you just comment?
Well, yeah, I can really grandly do all that because I do understand this G2G. We must understand that the oil prices are not determined by Kenyan government. They are international determined. What differs, the flight is known, the premium is known. The only difference right now when we have G2G is because we are talking of buying today and paying 180 days later. Over and above what you're telling the marketer, there is what you'd call the discounting rate. The discounting rate would be the preparedness for you to walk into a bank, get an LC, a future dated LC that will be honored. You have to pay today, but you need to have your bank to give you the finances. So what that means, Mheshimiwa, is simply that we know the international oil prices are determined internationally. We know the flight from whichever country to Kenya. Then we also know the insurance of that. Then comes the discount. How much are you charging us to advance us for 6 months, several millions of dollars? So what Laila was talking about, and rightfully so, is that the price of the oil, in absence of now this arrangement where you're post-dating the payments, that would be so much. But now we have to add on over and above that, we have to add the discount. Those are the charges that will go to your bank for giving you an LC that you must pay today, but the government is paying the supplier in 180 days. Just the same way you would walk into a bank, discount a certificate of payment or discount an invoice. They tell you the money has not been paid by your client, but we are giving you the money today. For that consideration, this is our risk factor, which will charge you at 3%. So that is exactly what Baba was talking about.
Mr. Basil.
Yes.
So when you say the government gets oil and then pays after 30 days,
After
180 days,
Yes.
are you trying to confirm we are loaned this oil? Because in principle, if I give you oil like without paying anything, it's like I'm loaning you, and at the same time, when the oil comes to the retail, people are supposed to pay cash, charge cash. So there is something which you are not telling us, because if the oil itself is on loan, that is your advance given for free to pay later.
Cash.
Yes, exactly.
Then that's what happening. That means we should even be getting less.
Thank you.
In terms of pricing.
Let me explain that to you. The essence of having the G2G was to remove the undue pressure on the dollar because we did not have the dollar. We had 8 known oil marketers. They were all walking to the bank and saying, I need $1 million. Whereas what we need is 1 million worth of oil, but 8 of them would walk into different banks, and therefore they would artificially push the demand for dollar upward. To remove the demand for dollar, we said, okay, let's have a kind of a G2G arrangement where we do not pay today, we pay in 180 days. What happens in between now? The consumers pay their money, or the retailers pay their money after 5 days. This money, the 40% that goes outside the country is paid in dollar. This denomination is deposited in dollars. What we consume as a local consumers, we pay in Kenya shillings. But these Kenya shillings have to be converted into dollars in 180 days. Therefore, what happens to the money? In the escrow account, using the rate, and we should look at the framework contract because it's there, and it's a public document, by the way. It says that you invest the money in T-bills, 2% or less in the T-bills, then that money is used to subsidize now, to stabilize the changes in the fluctuations.
Now we understand where the problem is. Because if my brother is explaining...
Give me a chance to explain to you, then you'd understand. Because it's
before the point.
Straightforward business.
Because of time.
Yeah, because of time.
I wanted to tell you before my point disappears.
Yes, why don't you want the answer from someone?
I think we need a discussion, and this is
when he says we are loan, we are in advance, and you are supposed to pay after 180 days.
80 days, yes.
If you look at the rate of Kenya shillings, the exchange of Kenya to dollar, we are losing every single day. So it means if we have to repay after 180 days, then you'll have to spend so many shillings
No,
to be
that's
able
exactly-
to repay.
that's
And that is
exactly
so
where it's
wrong.
coming
And that is
from.
why I'm telling my brother,
Why
if
don't
that
you
is the
just look
advice
at
we are
explain
giving
to
the
you? Okay,
government,
let's-
they
They
are
call
the
explanation-
people
an
who
explanation
contribute
in
the
30
problem we
seconds.
have.
We really
Because
need- we really need
the
to-
value of money now is not the same value
Mheshimiwa,
after
Basil,
180 days.
order, members.
Yes.
Because we are
Order,
losing,
order.
the
Mheshimiwa,
shilling is
waited.
weakening every day.
Order.
If you just waited a bit, I could have explained to you. The difference, the fluctuation, the worth of dollar today will not be the worth of dollar in 180 days. However, remember that we got this money 5 days after the retailers paid us. The 40% that goes outside the country, we got it immediately. We invest this money in treasury bills. We invest the dollars in what you call overnight lending systems. So the interest that you want from that money is used to cushion the fluctuations that you have in dollars. It's
All right.
simple economics.
Understood.
No,
Maybe I'll take a bit of time to
No,
explain to
it's
you.
really-
What he has answered, it was my question. So what he has said is that they are, I had asked about the 30 shillings per litre. He is saying that they are charging this because of the time period that they have given us. From his statement.
No, the discount.
The discount.
Yes.
So they are charging us per litre 30 shillings. Yet we wanted to cushion Kenyans against this. Can you imagine 30 shillings per litre for all the litre that we have? Is it really a good business idea that we are being cushioned, yet really we are even paying more?
That now comes to our question.
On my
What
last
could have
point-
happened if we had not done this? We would be exchanging the dollar today at more than 200. So if you are to look at the opportunity costs, and this is pure economics, then actually we are still at an advantage because we've been able to regulate the dollar that
right.
goes
There
into
is
several
no
other
advantage.
products.
I want to tell
All right.
my brother,
Just-
my last
All
point,
right.
The subsidy
Yes.
that used to
my
be
last
that
point,
is
if it's a
Basil,
G,
500
Basil,
billion we are
order.
saving annually.
Order. We may have to mute your mic so that we get to order, then start afresh. Anyway, I think allow us to end the newspaper review here. But Dan Mwangi, you're watching. Let's have this discussion on G2G and still have this panel, because this is a conversation that Kenyans really need to understand on why there is also conversations that our neighboring countries could be having their fuel prices going low while Kenya's is still going high, and we are talking about fuel stabilization fund. Those are things that the government may want
the global oil
to clear
price.
on. But please
I
let's...
wanted to tell him on G2G something, a point which I want listeners to listen to. If you look of negotiation
allow me- You know
between,
what happens?
I'll
What
give him
happens
chance.
is-
because you are missing
Allow me
what-
to say.
What happens,
Allow me
what
to
happens,
say.
Basil, if I allow you, is that we'll have to allow them
Yes,
to
to
respond.
allow-
No,
And
he
we'll
can
come to
respond
the
for a
point.
minute.
point of view.
That he can tell
10
him.
seconds.
Now, if you
Mike,
look
tell
at
me if it surpasses 10 seconds.
globally, we have the BRICS. That is Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. And there is that talk to bypass the dollar. If you talk of G2G, we should be having government negotiating with the oil exporter or oil producer and agreeing to pay in their local currency.
All right.
The Chinese are doing
did you get the local
that. Wait, I finish. The Chinese are doing that. They are negotiating with Iran, although Iran is under sanctions, If you come to Asia, Kenya, our G2G is not being productive, is not helping us as Kenyans because we are still experiencing
Your 10 seconds
the
are
wrath.
up. Your 10 seconds. The point is home.
And
The point is
high
home.
cost of
Marian,
fuel.
Marian, the point is home.
opportunity
Before you say, just to we have talked about BRICS wanting to bypass the dollar. I think he needs to also appreciate that us as the East African community are also trying to see how we can bypass the dollar on the local trading that we do amongst ourselves, because I'm buying something from Uganda, I need to get some foreign thing called dollar, yet we would have exchanged among ourselves. So
exchange.
that discussion,
Marianne, you are
no,
missing.
that
Order,
discussion
Basil.
is
Order, Basil.
currently ongoing, and I think that is something that he needs to appreciate, that yes, much as the BRICS are now doing their discussion, we are also doing ours.
Chair,
Marianne,
Okay,
you are
finally,
missing
as you talk
Well,
about commodity
Basil,
trade,
Basil,
Please, we are doing.
When in
As you talk
Tanzania,
about-
you don't need dollar to buy things
please,
in Tanzania.
as you talk about commodity trade, you must look at something that's called a balance of trade. You must look at how much commodities are we selling to that company. We are buying oil from countries we barely do business with. If we were selling enough to them, then we would say, hi, why don't we look at what we've sold to you, what we are buying from you, and then set off, and then settle the difference. We are buying oil from countries like Saudi Aramco, Saudi Arabia. The only thing that we export to Saudi Arabia is tea. It's too little to offset the balance. Therefore, we are disadvantaged as a country to be able to even start that kind of a discussion. However, moving forward, and the president is on record when he was in Djibouti asking, do we have to buy commodities in Djibouti with dollars?
Can I, because he has touched on a
I'll
point.
not allow. We will discuss. I'll call you call you when we'll have this particular discussion.
No, but he has touched on a very sensitive point.
But we
of
cannot,
balance
we
of
cannot
trade.
proceed with this
1
particular
minute.
topic.
I'll not even spend a minute to explain
No,
that.
we cannot, because we'll still continue the cycle.
Give me seconds.
Mike, we move on. Thank you very much. And we now get into our topic of discussion for the day. That G2G conversation is one that we shall certainly have. And the lead editor broadcasting news, Dan Mwangi, is clearly watching. And we'll plan for this particular day and this exact panel, because there are lots of unanswered questions on this, or lots of Kenyans need to really understand what is happening. But let's